I'm sure a lot of you guys at this point know who you're going to be targeting in your first 4 to 6 rounds. If you have an idea of where you're drafting, you're probably mapping out who's potentially available, who's going to be your second and third picks, where you want to target defensemen, so on and so forth. But guys, a lot of you don't know who to take in the later rounds when everyone is snagged, when the draft is gone completely in the wrong direction and you're panicking to try and find some value in the late rounds. Don't worry, I've got you guys. We are going to go over a ton of options for you guys as late round gems. There's an insane amount of depth at forward and so many opportunities for you guys to grab a really good player. Last year, I was able to get guys like Thomas Harley, JJ Peterka, Dylan Gunther in rounds 11 and beyond. So it just shows you that you can find league winners deep in your draft if you know what you're looking for. Without further ado, guys, here are some of our favorite late round gems. Go back, look at some of our previous content at this point, the must draft videos, the breakouts, the sleepers, and the rookies, and use those as kind of like your first batch of players that you're trying to target. If any of those guys are normally available, you want to be targeting these guys. These are guys that are beyond ADP 150 that are going to be well late into your drafts that you're going to be able to snag with your last couple picks and that have a ton of upside or are just incredible picks given their value at this point. So be sure that you guys go through and look at those players first, and then when you're at the bottom of the barrel trying to find somebody deep late in your draft, come back to this video and use this as reference. But as you can see, when it comes to defensemen and goalies, there isn't a ton beyond ADP 150. We always preface taking defense early and often, as frequently as possible. Even with goalies, you guys know that we love to wait until those later rounds to find our value at the goaltender position, maybe even go a 0G strat. But as you can see at ADP 150, there isn't a ton of options. Starting off on defense, we've got a ton of pairs for the last kind of power play one spots, I would say, in the league. You've got Klingberg and Dickinson on that San Jose unit. It's very possible that Sam Dickinson does get the first 9-game spread in San Jose and then gets put back to junior. So keep an eye on that. I think you're safest bet between the two of them is probably going Klingberg. You've got the Rinzel Leshnov conversation. That'll be something that we need to look at very closely in camp because that could be a lot of value. You've then got Tony DeAngelo and Matthew Schaefer, the first overall pick in this former draft. Normally, DeAngelo is your power play one quarterback there, and I think he's probably worth a pick. But if Schaefer does end up sticking beyond that 9-game threshold, I think there is definitely an opportunity for him to be that power play one quarterback moving forward. So just, again, something to keep an eye on in camp. And then finally, on defense, if you want to take a bit of a flyer, if you want to take, or not necessarily a risk, but just like a calculated guess at that point, who's going to be power play one in Anaheim. We might have a lot more info closer to the start of the season just through training camp, whether it's Olin Zellweger, whether it's Pavel Mintyukov, whether it's Jackson Lacombe, who we're anticipating on being that in that power play one spot to finish off because he had such an incredibly good season last year. And he was in the breakouts video. So just keep an eye on for that for camp. But if you want to take a flyer on one of these guys, moving on to goalies, we've got Joseph Woll, who is for some reason beyond ADP 150. Played over 40 games, gets a ton of wins, was around a 9-10 save percentage. I don't understand why his ADP is that low. He's going to split time with Stolarz. We know that moving forward. So if you're able to get Stolarz kind of in like those mid rounds, Woll is a great pickup later on. Joey Daccord is going to get a ton of volume. I don't really want anything to do with Seattle this year, but again, he's going to get a ton of volume. He's going to start a lot. So great in points league. Same as Stuart Skinner. Like, I don't trust this guy with the 10-foot pole, but he will get you a ton of volume. And then finally, rounding out the list in that same category, you have Yaroslav Askarov of the San Jose Sharks. Same situation, really bad team, ton of volume. I didn't really order these in any particular order, so we are going to be bouncing around ADP, the guys that are actually ranked and guys that aren't ranked. And one guy that I'm shocked isn't ranked is William Eklund of the San Jose Sharks. We have him projected for just over 50 points with 18 power play points, 158 shots, 48 blocks, or 57 blocks, excuse me, and 48 hits. He played the majority of the time with Celebrini and or Will Smith at 5-on-5 and power play one last year, especially towards the end of last season. He had a sneaky 18 points in his last 25 games, while averaging well over 19 minutes time on ice, which is a great sign for Eklund moving forward. He is, however, more of a playmaker and doesn't really get you a ton of shot volume or goal upside. He should hover around that 20 goal mark, but he's going to play in the top 6 for sure next year and will be on power play one as we expected based off of what we saw from last year. He's also 22 years old, so still relatively young, and there's a ton of opportunity for him to grow. And he is coming off of a 58-point season So I think there is still an opportunity for him to level up. And if Celebrini and Smith also level up at the same time, he could easily be a 60+ point player. Yeah, he was close to making it into the breakout video, but he already kind of broke out last year. I think he's a really good option later in drafts that should get you a ton of points going into next season. Next is Will Cooley of the New York Rangers. You're getting a massive discount across the board on Rangers players this year. Mike's talked about it. He's going to slot into a top 6 role because they've moved out Chris Kreider. There is such an opportunity for Cooley to extend what we saw out of him last year in terms of his overall production across the board. I don't think he's going to be on power play 1, and he only averaged 15:05 time on ice. So I think there's still an opportunity for him to level up and break out. I don't think he really has the ceiling or the skill level as some of the other guys, but he has a floor of 250 hits. And regardless if you shoot the puck 150, 160 times, if he gets you 20 goals and 250 hits, maybe even 290 hits as we're projecting him here with a ton of blocks on top of that, that is insane value for one of your later picks. He's going to stick in a top 6 role. I don't see a ton of flexibility here with the Rangers. Like I said, Chris Kreider's gone, so he's going to be playing alongside like a JT Miller or a Panarin potentially, or both. Depending on the way that the Rangers kind of mix and match their lines. Definitely something to keep an eye on going into camp. But if he hits over 50 points in a season and gets you 20 to 25 goals with the amount of volume that he has in his hits, he's going to get you a ton of value, especially given his ADP. Cooley is a great pick in the later rounds of your drafts. Now, before anyone freaks out, we're obviously not as high on him as we were last year. We've barely talked about him in any of the videos moving forward, but what is the risk here? Like, look at his ADP. He's got ADP basically 180 at this point. You can get him in probably one of the last picks of your draft. What if he's line 1 and power play 1, guys? It's very possible that they move a guy like Vincent Trocheck off of power play 1 because they do have a faceoff specialist in JT Miller now. So it's quite possible that Laff slides onto power play 1 going into next season. It's almost like a home run pick at this point, given his ADP, and he's pretty much guaranteed a top 6 role. He has a great floor on top of that, which he'll get you around like 180, 190 shots and over 100 hits. He's only 23 years old. He showed that he can be in that 60-point range, and for Alexis Lafreniere, I think it was just an awful year for both him and all of the Rangers collectively. Maybe we were just a year early on his big breakout that we were anticipating, and being in that top 6 role, like I said, with Cooley, without Kreider being there, there's a lot more opportunity for him to kind of play and increase his average time on ice from what we saw last year. I'm not as high on him, obviously, but I do think he's a really good pick later in drafts, given the floor of his hits and the fact that he will see top 6 minutes moving forward. We'll have to keep an eye out at camp, but I think moving forward, if he were to get power play 1, you're basically hitting a home run with this guy, and he should see a massive jump in his production, especially based off of last season, and could honestly dip over that 60, 65 point range. Marco Kasper, another guy that was on our radar towards the end of last season. He finished playing in that top 6, basically stapled alongside Lucas Raymond. They kind of rotated that second winger around, whether it was Patrick Kane or Alex DeBrincat. Kasper is going to slot into a top 6 role and probably power play 2 for next season. He had 14 points in his last 20 games and was pacing for around the 57 point mark, and that was with him on power play 2. In that 20 game span, he was also pacing for 190 shots, 188 hits, and 65 blocks, so that shows that he could have a really good peripheral floor. And with the combination of peripherals, dual eligibility, and around that 50 to 55 point mark for Kasper, he could potentially be a breakout going into next season. Not only just a late round gem, he is only a 20, and the Wings absolutely love him. It showed last year how much confidence they have in this guy playing in their top 6 and being a true pillar in their lineup moving forward. He was very close to making in the breakouts video. Like I said, I think he is in a really good spot going into next season, especially with some growth from Lucas Raymond. If they play alongside each other this year, this guy could easily hit 55 to 60 points. Rickard Rakell feels like a win-win at his ADP. It's a low-risk, high-reward situation. You're basically only 2 options are that he stays in Pittsburgh with Crosby, with Malkin, and then alongside both of them on the power play. He's got a great mix of goals, shots, hits, and blocks. He is everything you're looking for to just steal late round value. He's probably not going to have 35 goals again, but he should be in that 25 to 30 range, especially given the top 6 that he's playing with. He'll also have a solid floor on top of that. Like we've seen that out of his career. He's been around that 60 point mark. And like I said, you either have the option of him playing in the top 6 alongside Crosby and Malkin for the entire duration of the season, where he's going to benefit, or he gets traded and pushed to another team where he likely sees a middle six role and will get you similar production in terms of shots, hits, and goals. Rakell is a great pick in your later rounds. Just, you will win fantasy hockey leagues with these boring veteran players that you're just snagging late that shouldn't be going as late as they are. So I would look to grab Rakell, especially later in your drafts. And the fact that he's triple eligible on top of that, plays all three positions, you can fit him into basically anywhere in your lineup. One of my absolute favorite picks in the later rounds is Owen Tippett of the Philadelphia Flyers. ADP 171 is an absolute steal for this guy. I'm chalking up last season to torts. Like, I think the dip in production had a lot to do with the fact that, again, he didn't see the time on ice that we feel that he deserves given the upside that he brings from a goal scoring perspective. Not only that, but sometimes the line combinations, you just get put into an absolute blender in a tort system, and you're expected to be much more of a defensive player than an offensive one. And I truly think that Philly's going to open it up this year, especially with a guy like Matej Michkov, who absolutely popped off towards the end of last season. Tippett will be in that top six role moving forward, and hopefully a power play one role, depending on who the personnel that they decide to go with. But I think he is just such a great mix of goals, shots, hits, and blocks. He's very similar to Rakell in that sense, but I think he has more upside than a guy like Rakell, just given the fact that his shot volume could be 50 shots more than what we see out of Rakell, and the hit volume as well in combination with the goal scoring upside. If he lands on a line with a guy like Michkov, he could be in for a 30+ goal year. The goals and the shooting percentage have always stayed consistent given his time on ice. He just needs that extra bump. He just needs to go from 15 minutes to 17 minutes or even to 18 minutes, and we'll see a massive jump in terms of just everything across the board, from his peripherals to his shot volume to his goal scoring. He could easily have over 30 goals and over 280 shots if he's given that 17 to 18 average time on ice going into next season. One of my favorite targets in the late rounds. Rounding out our list, we have Kent Johnson of the Columbus Blue Jackets. The peripherals are awful. Let's just call it what it is. Like, he's not like an Owen Tippett or Rakell, where he's got a super safe floor. He was basically on a 70-point pace since game 25 in the regular season. He's incredibly skilled. He's only 22 years old. We just saw the breakout happen last year. He's going to see a top six role and power play one time. He was pretty much stapled to Fantilli last year, and I think that will also be another opportunity for him to level up, is the fact that we're expecting a big jump out of Fantilli next year. So I think that there is possible 70+ point upside here if he takes a step and stays healthy, and if he's skating alongside somebody like Adam Fantilli at 5-on-5 and on that top power play unit. Even better if he lands on a line with Marchenko, probably, and at the top, he's just like on the top line with Fantilli and Marchenko. Like, then I think it's, they're going off. But for Kent Johnson, he's not going to get you a ton of shots. Basically doesn't hit or block whatsoever. The peripherals are really bad, but I think the point production is there. And for a guy that you can get at basically your last pick of your draft that has like 60-point plus upside, maybe you can dip even into the 70s, like I said earlier. This is a great late round gem. Highly recommend that you look for this guy towards the latter half of your draft. That will wrap up our video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like and hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed the content. Let me know in the comments down below who is a late round gem that you guys are looking to target. I always love hearing your guys' opinions and love interacting with you guys in the YouTube comments. So leave a comment down below as you think who a late round gem is this year. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.